Earlier this evening, I spoke with Mike Brown, the director of the Federal Emergency Management Agency. He's coordinating disaster relief of a dozen federal agencies and the American Red Cross. I asked about the discrepancy between FEMA's estimate of the number of people at the convention center and the mayor's estimate. One of you was wrong. It's either 5,000 or 15,000. Do you know?
Actually, I have sent General Honore of the 1st Army to find out exactly the truth of what's down there because we first learned at the convention center, we being the federal government today, and that he says the number is around 25,000.
Okay, so it sounds as though the mayor who said 15 to 25,000 was closer in touch. I've heard you say during the course of this evening on a number of interviews, you just found out about it today. Don't you guys watch television? Don't you guys listen to the radio? Our reporters have been reporting about it for more than just today.
We learned about it factually today, that's what existed. We've been so focused on doing rescue and life-saving missions and evacuating people from the Superdome that when we first learned about it, of course, my first gut instinct was get somebody in there, give me truth on the ground, let me know, because if it's true, we've got to help those people.
You've got chaos and anarchy breaking out in a number of different places in New Orleans. It would seem to me that the first thing you need to do is to get some good solid combat troops like the 82nd Airborne or the 101st in there. These are guys who are ready to move immediately. Instead, you're sending National Guardsmen in there and it's taking time. You don't have time.
We don't have time, Ted, and General Honore and the 1st Army Division are here at my disposal, and we're absolutely doing that. We are ramping that up. There will soon be 30,000 armed National Guard troops in there to restore order, to take control of the facilities and allow us to do our job.
Mr. Brown, forgive me because I can't imagine what it must be like to have the burden on my shoulders that you have on yours right now. But here we are, essentially 5 days after the storm hit, and you're talking about what's going to happen in the next couple of days. You guys do war games. You have gamed out what is going to happen. In recent months, after a Force 3 or a Force 4 or a Force 5 hurricane, to say as the president did, well, we didn't know the dams were going to break, or we didn't know that the levees were going to break, is factually true. Of course, you didn't know it, but you could have assumed it. You could have made preparations for what would happen in the event that. You knew it was going to be a Force 5 storm that was going to hit in that region. Why didn't you?
Ted, we had people pre-positioned to move in immediately. And what happened, which is unusual in this disaster, there's two things. First and foremost, the disaster continued long after Hurricane Katrina had moved on. When the levees did break, we were already moving in and then had to move back out. And then I think the other thing that really caught me by surprise was the fact that there were so many people, and I'm not laying blame, but either chose not to evacuate or could not evacuate. And as we began to do the evacuations from the Superdome, all of a sudden, literally thousands of other people started showing up in other places. And we were not prepared for that. We were surprised by that. And so what we've done is we have ramped up the rescue efforts to get those people. There are helicopters flying tonight to take care of the people on the bridges that we have found. There's additional supplies coming into the convention center and into the Superdome. And we have brought in every available resource to make sure we take care of those people. And I just want to say to the American public that they do need to understand exactly how catastrophic this disaster is. And they do need to know that we're going to have every available resource to do everything that we can. We're going to take care of these victims. We're going to make it right. We're going to make certain, we're going to make absolutely certain that the devastation that has been reaped upon these people is taken care of and that we get their lives back in order.
Mr. Brown, some of these people are dead. They're beyond your help. Some of these people have died because they needed insulin and they couldn't get it. Some of the people died because they were in hospitals and they couldn't get the assistance that they needed. You say you were surprised by the fact that so many people didn't make it out. It's no surprise to anyone that you had at least 100,000 people in the city of New Orleans who are dirt poor, who don't have cars, who don't have access to public transportation, who don't have any way of getting out of the city simply because somebody says, you know, there's a Force 5 storm coming, you ought to get out. If you didn't have the buses there to get them out, why should it be a surprise to you that they stayed?
Well, Ted, I'm not going to sit here and second guess why or when evacuation orders were given, or why not the city didn't have buses available. That's just not the thing that we need to do right now.
Not the city.
Frankly,
not
if
the
they,
city.
If they had,
I'm not asking you, Mr. Brown, why the city didn't have buses available. I'm asking you why you didn't have National Guards in there with trucks to get them out there. Why you didn't have people with flatbed trailers if that's what you needed. Why you didn't, simply get Greyhound buses from as many surrounding states as you could lay your hands on to get those people out of there. Why you haven't done it to this day.
Ted, we're doing all of that. We're moving all of those things in there. And what people need to understand is that when you're doing these life-saving and life-sustaining kind of operations, that if I move rescue workers into harm's way and they become victims themselves, it just makes the problem doubly worse. So yes, we move in when it's safe to move in. We move in when we can do that. We work closely with the state government. The federal government did not come in here and just tell this governor how or what to do. We came in here and said, what do you want us to do? We will help you. We are now taking it upon ourselves to do things that we think need to be done, and we will continue to do that because that's our job.
Your state counterpart, Terry Everett, the head of emergency operations in Louisiana, says this is a national emergency. This is a national disgrace. FEMA, he said, has been there 3 days, yet there is no command and control. We send massive amounts of aid to tsunami victims, but we can't bail out the city of New Orleans.
Ted, with all due respect to him, we have convoys, we're feeding people, the people in the convention center are being fed, the people on the bridges are being fed.
With all due respect, sir, the people in the convention center are not being fed. Our reporters...
The people in the Superdome, I'm sorry, you're absolutely correct. We're getting the supplies to the convention center now, but the people in the Superdome have been being fed. That supply chain has been working, and that has been moving along, and those evacuations have been continuous.
But the people of New Orleans were told to go to the convention center. They went there in the belief that supplies would be waiting for them when they got there.
Well, I don't know who made that promise to them, Ted, but our job was to get those supplies in there once we realized that the federal government was going to be asked to come in and do that, and that's exactly what we did.
All right, Mr. Brown, again, forgive me for beating up on you there, but you're the only guy from the federal government these days who's coming out to take your medicine, so I thank you for doing that, and I really hope you're going to be able to help those people, because you still have, trust me, you have got thousands of people at the convention center tonight who need your help desperately.
Ted, I agree with you, and I got to tell you, in all sincerity, my heart goes out to those people, and I am determined, absolutely determined, to speed this thing up, make this thing work, and get the aid to those people. This is a catastrophic disaster for this country.
Michael Brown, thanks very much indeed.